Have you ever really stopped and wondered what's actually happening inside a tool like ChatGPT? When you type in a question, how does it go from just your words to a full, coherent answer? Well, today, we're going to pull back that curtain. We're going to deconstruct how these incredible AI tools actually think. So let's get right into it.
I mean, let's be honest, you've probably used AI for something by now, right? Maybe to help write an email, summarize a long article, or just to ask it a silly question. But for most of us, what happens behind the screen is a total black box. This explainer is all about cracking that box wide open.
Okay, so first things first, let's get our terms straight. The technology at the very heart of tools like ChatGPT is called a large language model, or what you'll hear everyone call an LLM.
So what is it? Well, an LLM is a kind of foundation model. Think of it as a very broad, general-purpose AI. Its real power comes from being trained on just a mind-boggling amount of text. We're talking petabytes of data from books, from articles, from huge swaths of the internet. All of that data is what gives it the ability to understand our language and, talk back to us like a human.
And you have to understand this is a huge shift in how we've always built software. For decades, programming was all about giving a computer super explicit rules. If this happens, you do that. Simple. But with machine learning and LLMs, we've totally flipped the script. We don't give it rules anymore. Instead, we just say, here are a billion examples of text. Go figure out the patterns yourself.
Yeah, this quote just nails it. It's the perfect way to think about it. We've gone from programming a computer to do something to programming a computer to learn how to do something. And that flexibility is what makes this whole thing so revolutionary.
All right, so now we know what an LLM is at a high level. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does it actually work when you send it a prompt? It's definitely complex, but we can break it down into a pretty simple three-step journey.
So here's the game plan. First, your text gets chopped up into little pieces in a step called tokenization. Then, those pieces get turned into a bunch of numbers. That's called embeddings. And finally, a special piece of tech called a transformer analyzes all those numbers to understand the context and figure out what to say next. Let's walk through each one.
Step 1. Tokenization. Look, before an AI can read anything, it needs to break it down into smaller chunks, or tokens. It's kind of like how we read a sentence one word at a time. The model does the same thing, but with tokens. A simple word like run might be one token, but something more complex like running might get split into run and ning.
Okay, now this is where the real magic starts to happen. Each of those little tokens gets converted into a long list of numbers called a vector. And the best way to think about this is like GPS coordinates, but for meaning. In this giant, invisible map of words, concepts like king and queen or cat and kitten are placed really, really close together. This is how the AI starts to grasp the relationships between words.
And finally, we get to the absolute engine of a modern LLM, the transformer. This was a breakthrough idea from back in 2017. It uses this incredible mechanism called self-attention. Basically, it lets the model look at an entire sentence all at once and figure out how important every single word is to every other word. That's how it knows that in the sentence, the delivery truck blocked the driveway, so it was late. The word "it" refers to the truck, not the driveway. It's all about understanding context.
And that transformer idea, it didn't just make things a little better. Oh no, it kicked off an absolute explosion in AI development. It's the reason we're living through this AI revolution right now.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It really puts the speed of all this into perspective. We had some really basic chatbots way back in the 60s, but for decades, things moved pretty slowly. Then, boom, 2017. That transformer paper comes out and everything changes. In just a handful of years, we went from a paper in a research journal to a technology that is changing the world.
And when we say things changed, we mean they got ridiculously big. GPT-4 reportedly has 1.76 trillion parameters. So what's a parameter? Just think of it like a tiny little knob that the AI can twist and turn as it learns to fine-tune its understanding. Now imagine 1.76 trillion of those knobs. This chart just says it all. The large in large language model is not a joke. In 2018, we were talking millions of parameters. By 2020, hundreds of billions. And just 3 years later, we're at over 1 trillion. That incredible exponential growth in sheer scale is one of the biggest reasons these models have gotten so incredibly smart, so fast.
Okay, so these things are huge. They're complex. They're getting bigger every day. But what does that actually mean for us, for our jobs, for our lives? Well, like any technology this powerful, there's amazing promise, but there are also some serious perils. The promise is already all around us. We're seeing industries completely transformed. Think about intelligent customer service bots that can solve real problems, or tools that help software developers write and fix code in a fraction of the time. And of course, there's the massive revolution in content creation, from marketing emails to brainstorming new ideas. But there's a flip side. With all that promise comes some pretty big risks. You've probably heard of hallucinations. That's when the AI just confidently makes stuff up. And a lot of these problems come down to that classic computer science saying, garbage in, garbage out. Because the model learns from human writing, it also learns all of our biases and our mistakes. This also opens up huge questions about copyright, security, and what happens when people accidentally feed these models confidential information. So, keeping all of that in mind, where do we go from here? The pace of research is just breathtaking, and scientists are working around the clock to try and solve some of these big problems. A few really cool advancements are just on the horizon. The first one is multimodality. That just means future AIs won't be stuck with text. They'll be able to understand images, audio, and video too. Then you have clever ideas like mixture of experts, which is a smarter way to run these giant models more efficiently. And maybe one of the biggest game changers is something called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. This lets the AI pull in live, up-to-the-second information from the web, so it's not stuck with old, outdated knowledge.
For a lot of the people working on this stuff, the ultimate goal, the North Star really, is something called Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. That's the theoretical point where an AI wouldn't just be good at language or coding, but it could perform pretty much any intellectual task a human being can.
And that brings us to the final and honestly the most important question in all of this. As these models get more and more powerful, the biggest challenge isn't just a technical one. It's alignment. How do we make sure that the goals and the values we build into these systems actually align with our own human values? It's one of the defining questions of our time, and definitely something to think about the next time you ask an AI for a little help.